if we look at the past, you went to... What do you think about the latest developments in Turkey? Berlusconi.
I can't believe it.
Çok heyecanlıyım. Öncelikle Papa'nın naaşı 3 farklı tabuta yerleştirildi. Bu özel röportajı yapmayı kabul ettiğiniz için teşekkür ediyorum.
Konu nedir?
Konu ben.
Konu sizin hayatınız.
Mon cœur qui...
It's cool, but it's what we do about it. That's
The fiber keeps the sugar in your stomach, so it doesn't quickly push your insulin.
To change the world.
Dün Bugün Yarın'la yeniden karşınızdayız sayın seyirciler. Bu kez uluslararası sanat dünyası tarafından tanınan eserleri müzelere girmiş, müzelerde sergilenmiş genç bir Amerikalı sanatçıyı ağırlıyoruz. Summer Wet konuğumuz. Hemen kendisine dönüyorum, hemen sanatçıyı tanıyalım diyorum. Summer Wet, welcome to our program, which is called Yesterday, Today and Tomorrow in English. You know, I translate it to you so that you know of. First of all, I like to ask you, what is art to you in your own definition?
That's a hard question. I guess it can be anything, really. It can be anything. It's undefinable, really. It's not something that you can define until you either feel it or you see it. It's just a language that, in the most simplistic way, is visual, that communicates something, and it either works or it doesn't for you. So it depends on your perspective of where you're coming from as a viewer.
And what maybe you're feeling.
What you're feeling,
yes.
yes.
And being an artist, what is it to your own definition?
It depends on what day you ask, because some days it's very rewarding and exciting and I feel very inspired and empowered, and other days it feels like a lot of heavy lifting and hard work and labor. So it's sort of like a changing perspective depending on where I'm at in the process.
I see.
Yeah.
Just like how we are,
yeah.
you know, usually as being human beings. You know,
exactly.
One day up, one day high, one day low.
Exactly.
Yes. And when you go back to your early years, childhood, for example, when was the first time, do you remember that first time, that moment when you got encountered with art, or you have seen an artwork? Or?
Yes, I was 6 years old in the first grade, and there was an animator, an animation artist that came to visit my school, and he had a pad of paper and a pencil, and he drew these rabbits that were animated, and so he made this little flip book, and he made the rabbits dance with just this pencil and paper. And I remember like elbowing people out of the way so that I could get as close to him as possible, and I was fascinated on how he made this line and used just pencil and paper to create something that moved and became alive. And it was like magical for me, and from that day on, I was always trying to define the world around me with lines and shapes, and looking at how shapes and lines come together to make
So
life.
that was when you decided to become an artist?
Yes.
And you never changed your, you know, decision afterwards, and we see you became a very successful artist.
Very obsessed with it, actually. Like I just had pens and papers always. I carried them around with me wherever I went when I was a kid, and I was entertained always just by
drawing.
Always drawing. Yeah.
You describe your art pieces as too sensual, disturbing, ugly, but beautiful. Why disturbing and why ugly, but yet at the same time beautiful? Could you tell us about your description of your own art more in details to us and to the viewers, so they understand?
I just think that beauty is sort of the most even though it might be a simple way of looking at art, like it's an extremely, the most vital to me part of it. Like I want there to be like a sense of beauty beyond something that you can understand really. And I feel like the only way to capture such beauty is by capturing the other side of beauty, or what we think of as beauty. And I feel like so much of our life is enveloped in a world of beauty and ugliness. And so depending on how you're looking at it, you could look at anything as beautiful or anything as ugly. And so I just think that that's an interesting thing, because everything that's beautiful is also ugly. It's strange. Yes. Like you could look at anything that way.
Your technique, you have innovative ways to apply the paint to canvas. How would you describe it, your technique?
It's an intersection between painting, drawing, and sculpture, and that was always kind of my quest. Like I was saying before, when I saw this artist just use a pencil and a paper, a pen and paper, the sort of simple tools of that nature really, like I feel, are the sort of crucial part of my practice, because it's where I started and where the architecture of everything I do sort of relies on just a simple line and paper. And so I feel like I wanted to always paint lines on canvas, but it didn't feel like it had enough of a sculptural aspect to it, because I want the paintings to be physical. And so this process has sort of gratified all of those different needs that I have as an artist, to want to make sculpture, painting, and drawing all together into one thing.
As you just said, your work includes drawing, sculptural installations, and painting. In which one do you feel more at ease in expressing yourself? In which of those techniques do you feel more at ease in expressing?
I would say drawing, probably. Just with, like I keep saying, like a pencil and a paper, everything begins there. So even the installations or whatever it is I'm doing, everything is very planned out on a small scale first. And so I feel there's a lot of freedom in working on this small scale initially, because you have a lot of authority over the page, because you are bigger than the page. And then once you invent the world on the page, it becomes larger once you make it into a space.
And here in Turkey, this is your first solo exhibition.
Yes.
In Dream Art, and we are surrounded by your art. We see a lot of colors, which I personally love it. And your technique here is different.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about it? Because when I look at it from here, I could tell that this is like there's a fabric in here, a tissue, but it's not, in fact. Yes, could you tell us, please?
Yeah, I used to paint with a lot of very thick paint on canvas. And then I started taking the paint off of the canvas and using paint itself as a sculptural medium. And from there, I really just started deconstructing the ideas of painting and trying to like make a painting into a sculpture. And so I started taking these aluminum sheets of mesh and pushing paint through the back side of it. So I like to look at paint from 3 dimensions, and so I make the paintings from the front and the back, and it's sort of like this, I'm circling around the painting as I'm making it. So they're suspended away from the wall as I'm creating them.
How much time did, especially for example, this art piece took you?
Several months. It takes a good amount of time for me to first register the drawing into place, and then once the drawings are set, then I sort of work in this way where the drawings are made in a very private space. Like I don't work on my drawings at the studio, and then when the drawings are done, I take them to my studio, and I have a few people helping me make the paintings. So it allows me a way to work in an isolated way with the drawings, and then once I'm in the studio, I have like a collaboration almost with the people I work with, so that we can build them together, and it becomes several steps of problem solving and how to like make it happen. So
a lot of process.
It's a lot of process.
Yes,
yeah.
it goes through. And women. We see the theme women in different exhibitions of yours, the previous ones, but also here the theme is on women. Why women, and what would you say on this specific exhibition, the theme?
In general, I want my work to be something that touches base with like the ancient past, but also the future. So in the way that they're connected to the past is just that I look at a lot of medieval manuscripts or Egyptian pictograms. A lot of the reference points I pull from are from like ancient depictions of mostly men archetypes doing things like beekeeping, gardening, hunting, things like that. Images that we know in our conscious memory that have registered all of these images as male roles that are played out through visual history. And I'm interested in taking the basic archetypes of our visual history and transforming those images into female roles, like creating new images where females are doing things that men once were portrayed as doing. And so there's two parts to the process in that I want to transform the paint into a way that we haven't really thought of it before, and then also transform the image and look at women maybe in a context that they haven't been seen before, just because I feel like it's an important thing to do right now.
Yes, especially right now in today's world.
Yes.
What is being a woman in your own definition in today's world? Might be a difficult question with all that's going on gender equality, this, that.
It's very interesting what this time in our history has revealed to me about being a woman, because until like a lot of these movements came about, I sort of took things in a different way. Like I was so used to some of the different patronizing or abusive sort of things that happen when you're working as a woman. And a lot of this movement has made me recognize, like, yeah, I totally understand what everybody's talking about. And before that, I just never really thought about it all that much in terms of feeling like it needed to so specifically be fought for. It's just an interesting time that's revealing itself as I go, and so it's such a hard question to answer because I could go on and on about that one.
Let's put it this way: are you hopeful about the future for the women in the world, the place of the women?
Very, yes. I still think there's a long way to go, a very long way to go actually, because we're just, even though there's been a lot of progress in the last 50 years, I feel like we're just at the onset, we're just at the beginning of really starting to realize the things that have happened to us and how much more we have to fight for and how much more equality there is to be gained, because there's still a major imbalance.
And are there specific figures, like people as your muses you get inspired from and they reflect your works?
There are. I mean, I think about, like, there's an activist, Emma Goldman, that I used to read a lot of her work, and I really feel inspired by her. But in general, I feel like the women maybe that are kind of unknown, actually, just the women who work very hard that you run into in your daily life are really inspiring. The women who are behind the scenes, who are doing things every day that are not recognized, or they may not be recognized. I find their stories are super powerful.
True heroes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And another question, we are coming to the end of the interview. what makes an art more timeless as an artist? What would you say on this? The idea, the theme, or the technique used by the artist?
I think it's
in contemporary art.
It's a hard thing to sometimes know in our time because things may not be available to. I think it's such a time-based question. It's like timelessness really has a way of sort of just existing throughout time, but we may never know if it's timeless because it may resurface in 100 years, something that may be completely unrecognized today.
Or let's say valuable.
Valuable.
Yes.
It's fascinating actually, like thinking about how we quantify art and how we sort of build a market around something, but I feel like it's a very personal thing that one has to discover for themselves. I mean, I feel lucky in that because I'm versed in this language and I work with it every single day, when I see something that is timeless to me, I feel like it's a very intuitive response that I know immediately, and I have a yes or no kind of button in my soul that just knows whether or not it's something that feels on point to me, that will last. Because there are a lot of things that are very trendy, there's a lot of things that are just kind of surface or not really investigating.
And they're just trendy and
they
yes,
pass on.
They pass
and
on.
They might hit a very specific moment or be relevant for a very specific moment, but then they just pass on. So.
And your message to those young viewers who want to become artists or who are already becoming artists and who are very much interested in drawing and sculpture and painting, what would it be?
What would my advice be?
Yes, yes. To those watching you.
I would say it has to be some kind of calling that you feel is calling you every day, and if it's not, find something else to do.
So give up, you say. Oh, this is
but if it's a calling that you feel, you know, every single day, something that you have to do, then of course you have to do it.
If you're doing with passion.
But you have to endure a lot of, you have to take the chance of maybe going many years without, you know, basic things in life.
Summer, thank you very much for this interview. We took your 20 minutes.
Yes, thank
you very much.
Thank you so much.
And we hope you will come back with more exhibitions to Turkey.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Evet, dün bugün yarının sonuna geldik. Umarım sizler de keyif almışsınızdır bu sohbetimizden. Bu değerli sanatçıyı da tanıma fırsatı bulmuşsunuzdur. Buradan Dream Art'a biz de teşekkürlerimizi iletiyoruz. Çünkü her seferinde çok farklı, değerli sanatçılarla tanışma fırsatı buluyoruz ve onları da burada programımızda konuk edip sizlere tanıtıyoruz. Summer Witch sergisi de Dream Art Dolapdere'de 12 Mayıs'a kadar devam edecek. Meraklılarına duyurulur. Mutlaka gelin, gezin, görün derim. Bir sonraki programımızda yeniden karşınızda olmak üzere. Şimdilik hoşça kalın.